What's up, Make Pop Music? It's Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Hall Audio and Visual, and we are back with another video. And this week we're going to be talking about how to practice active listening and how to analyze songs. Last week we did a video on how to improve your vocal melodies and your top lines, and one of my main tips was that you need to practice active listening so you can start reverse engineering songs and kind of subconsciously taking them as tips and tools. And I asked if you guys wanted a full video about that, and the response was overwhelmingly yes, so that's why we're here today. We're going to be taking a look at Dua Lipa's song Levitating and basically breaking it down element by element. And by the end of this video, hopefully you'll have a good idea of how to practice active listening, some things that you should be looking for in songs, and just kind of develop some tools and techniques to kind of pay a little bit more attention, where you can actually draw those elements out and use them in your own style. If you want, we'll have a link in the description where you can actually take a look at the full kind of finished document for Levitating. But this is not really about this song in specific. There are already song breakdowns of this, I'm sure, somewhere on YouTube. But this is more so how to practice active listening and things that you're going to want to actually look out for. So if you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. But without further ado, let's actually hop into the DAW and take a look at what we're going to be breaking down today. All right, now we're actually in my session. I went ahead and bought Levitating off of Amazon so I could get the high quality download, and then I just dragged it into my DAW. That's typically where I'll get anything that I want to use as like a mix or master reference, or I have something that I want to pull in my DAW and just kind of analyze. Is I'll just go buy it from Amazon Music because they have an instant download. So now that we have that, I have a document that I made right here in Google Sheets, and typically I'll just mark the artist, a song, and then we're going to find the key, the tempo, and then write some initial notes. And then I have all of the lyrics right here that will basically be doing a bunch of stuff. So in this video, I want to basically talk about finding the key, finding the tempo, kind of finding the general kind of arrangement. And then we're also going to break down what the melody structure of the verses and choruses look like. We're also going to break down the rhyme scheme of the verses and the chorus. And then we're also going to be notating stuff like how many measures each section is. We'll be going over general kind of arrangement issues. And then for each section, I'll basically highlight it and make little footnotes where I can talk about what's going on with the instrumentation there. Are there any production effects, any kind of specific melodic things happening that I want to note? And then at the end, this will all be filled out, color-coded, have its little notes, and it'll be good to go. So if you want to download that, you can. We'll have it in the description. So me personally, I'm rarely actually making something like this and going in and spending 30 minutes to an hour actually breaking it down, but I used to do it quite often. And then after a while, these are things that just start to subconsciously happen in your brain, and they're things that you just start reverse engineering without even recognizing it. So we're basically going to go over basically how to overanalyze it, and then you can just peel this back to however much effort you want to put in on a day-to-day basis. We can go ahead and listen and start by just finding the key and the tempo, and then we'll go from there. So right off the bat, I'm going to find the tempo. I'll turn off the tempo track because I don't think that this changes. And typically all I'll need to do for this is start dragging it back until it looks like this over here at measure 5 is going to lengthen up. And it looks like 103 is going to be it. So let's take a listen. If you wanna run away with me, I know a galaxy. And then typically what I'll do is I'll just go later in the song and make sure we're still on. Cool, that looks good to me. And then the second thing that I like to do is find the key. So let me go ahead and write down that this is 103 BPM. Now to find the key, basically what I'm going to do is I'll start by playing the root note that the bass is playing, and then I'll go and I'll find these actual synth chords. So let's go ahead and take a listen. All right, so it looks like those bass notes are just kind of going through 3 notes. It's basically B, F sharp, E, B. And that's pretty much it. And then I think for this song, I think it stays the same the entire time. So let's see. It's sounding like F sharp minor, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that. So F sharp minor, tempo of 103, and then let's go ahead and see if we can figure out what notes it's doing. So all right, so I have Keyscape right here. I'll pull this up so you can kind of see. It sounds like a B minor 7, and then maybe an F minor 7, and then maybe E minor 7, and then honestly it's probably just going to go back to that B minor 7. So we got B minor 7, F minor 7, E minor 7, B minor 7. So it looks like that's basically all that's happening. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark on here. We actually have an intro that is 4 measures, and chord progression is just looking like, what I say, B minor 7, F minor 7, and then E minor, and then B minor 7. Is that what we said? So we have yep, and then the bass note is just going. So the bass note is just doing the root note of whatever these are doing right here. So that's really all we have. And honestly, I think that this is going to be the chord progression for the entire thing. So I'm going to go ahead and drag it to the verse right here, and we'll adjust it if we need to. So next thing I'm going to do is, now that we've kind of discovered the key and the tempo and the basic chord progression, is I'm just going to go through here and I'm going to chop it up section by section and color code it. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then I'll jump back in. I don't want to bore you all with that. So I've chopped it all up. Now I'm just going to go ahead and color code it. So we'll basically have like instrumental little breaks right here in green. So let's go ahead and look. And then we'll have verses right here in, let's do red. We'll have pre-choruses in blue. Let's have choruses in pink. All right, this is a post-chorus, so we'll have this in like a mint. We have a bridge right here. Let's have that in orange. Here's the entire song structure. It looks like we basically have intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, a little kind of instrumental turnaround, which is similar to the intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus. So up until here, it's all perfectly parallel. And then after that second chorus, we have a pre-chorus right here. And then after that pre-chorus, we have our bridge. And then after that bridge, here's where we have something interesting. We go back into what's basically like a little... We basically go into a breakdown that's that same pre-chorus. It's this. It's just broken down with drums, and it's halftime, and it's a little bit vibier. And then we go into this big kind of false chorus right here. I got you, moonlight, you're my... So like we talked about bridges before in a video, and one of the things that I said was after a bridge you could do like a false chorus, where you basically have like stompy clappy choruses with a bunch of gang vocals. Pretty much exactly what happens here. And then we go into another post chorus, which is kind of interesting because we really didn't have a full chorus right here. And then instead of having the post chorus after the chorus, they put a chorus after the post chorus, and that pretty much plays the song out. You're my starlight, I need you all night. Come on, dance with me. I'm levitating. And then that's literally the entire song. So we'll go ahead and we'll mark off all of the measures, and then that'll be done. Okay, so I just marked our note sheet on basically what the kind of breakdown for the structure is, and the chord progression does stay the same throughout, so I just kind of notated that here. And I've been saying measures. I guess technically these would actually be bars because they're kind of, you know, full scopes of music. I kind of use them interchangeably, probably not correct, but measures, bars, whatever, you kind of get the point. Other than that, we have the key, we have the tempo, and we have the actual structure, which tells you a lot about a song. So if I wanted to make something that was like disco pop, I'd kind of use this as a starting point. But now let's go ahead and let's actually talk about some of the production stuff. So once I kind of discover the formula of the song, then I'll start to kind of break down what is happening in the production. So for the intro, we literally just have that one synth happening. And then we have like a full bar kind of riser that's happening, like a little spacey riser. 2 big claps and a bass slide on that second clap. So, and pretty simple. So we'll go ahead and just write some of that down over here. So I'll just make a note. And that synth is probably just something that could be made easily in Serum or in Omnisphere or something like that. It just sounds like it's kind of like this slow attacking, you know, detuned synth. And there's some noise behind it, so I kind of noticed that as well. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what's happening in these verses. If you wanna run away with me, I know a galaxy and I could take you for a ride. I had a premonition that we fell into a rhythm where the music don't stop for. All right, so interestingly, in the drums, we basically have a kick and a snare and a clap, and the hi-hat's really only happening on the snare hits. We don't really have a hi-hat rhythm whatsoever. So I'm gonna go ahead and start marking some of this stuff, and we'll add some notes. So production, drums, we have kick, snare, hi-hat on snare hit. We have these big double claps. and those have extra layers on them. So pretty simple for the main hit, for the main snares and claps. And then when those extra double claps come on, it's got really, really wide claps. So that's something that you could add. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this bass, because to me, that's kind of the sauce of this song. It's kind of just this like groovy, lightly slapped bass, super scooped, lots of movement. And this is where you're really getting a lot of the movement from that song.
If you wanna run away with me, I know a galaxy and I could take you for a ride. I had a premonition that we fell into.
Also, one thing to note, it plays a passing note, not in the key. And you can typically get away with passing notes, so you could do something like if you were in F sharp minor, that's kind of a passing note. That F right there is not in the key, but it works really well if you're just going by really quickly, and it kind of adds like this nice little jazzy, funky element. So it has that passing note. It's got these like twangy light guitars under, very funky. And then synth, sounds like the same synth from the intro and really nothing else. I should say that there is also, for these drums, there's a crash on the 1. So let's see if that happens all the time or if it's just every, you know, four bars.
If you wanna run away with me, I know a galaxy and I could take you for a ride. I had a premonition that we fell into a rhythm where the music don't stop for life. Glitter in the sky, glitter in my eyes.
All right, so yeah, it only comes in every 4 bars, kind of just as like a little accent hit. And I don't think any production really changes when we head into this B section.
Glitter in the sky, glitter in my eyes, shining just the way you like. If you're feeling like you need.
Sounds like there's also a little hey shout under those second claps. And then there's a woo on the last shout, or on the last clap. And that's pretty much it for the production of this verse. This verse is super simple. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the vocal production. I think it's one vocal for most of it. Maybe they're kind of layered up.
If you wanna run away with me, I know a galaxy and I could take you for a ride. I had a premonition that we fell into a rhythm where the music don't stop for life. Glitter in the sky, glitter in my eyes, shining just the way you like.
All right, so for the vocals, it is one take through the whole thing, and extra big verb on the second half of this verse. So we get that really big extra reverb when it comes in right here.
Glitter in the sky, glitter in my eyes, shining just.
In this first half, it's pretty dry.
I could take you for a ride. I had a premonition that we fell into a rhythm.
Cool. So we're just adding a little bit of extra width, and then we can go ahead and talk a little bit about the melody. The melody for this verse is pretty simple. It's the same for the second verse, so this will save us quite a bit of time on this breakdown. But we basically have this split into 2 things. We have melody A, which is,
If you wanna run away with me, I know a galaxy and I could take you for a ride.
and then it does that again right here with, I had a premonition in it.
I had a premonition that we fell into a rhythm where the music don't stop for life.
So I'm gonna call that melody A. Is a descending melody, happens twice before switching, and then we're going into melody B.
Glitter in the sky, glitter in my eyes, shining just the way you like. If you're feeling like you need a little bit of.
And then we're back to melody A. So melody B is basically the inverse of melody A, and what this is doing is this is building extra tension. So we have a rising melody that happens once before going back to melody A. And that's a pretty common tactic, is when you have a verse that's 8 bars or even 16 bars, to kind of have a consistent melody and just swap that up for one little section of that, which is exactly what the writers did for this.
Music don't stop for life. Glitter in the sky, glitter in my eyes.
All right, so that's pretty much the verse. Let's move on to the pre-chorus.
Met me at the perfect time. You want me, I want you, baby, my sugar boo.
All right, so we're getting a lot of different production stuff happening here. So let's go ahead and start marking this. So immediately right off the bat, let's take a look at the drums. Drums are actually the same as the verse. Let's take a listen. There are these like really, really big wide guitar hits.
You want me, I want you, baby, my sugar boo. I'm levitating.
Big wide hits of guitar that add urgency. That right there that just kind of happen so often. Let's go ahead and take a look at the synths. All right, so the synths, same synth as the verse before. Also, it adds this little string run in as a counter melody. That just happens right here.
You want me, I want you, baby, my sugar boo. I'm levitating.
Right there it goes da-da-dun almost like the Sports Center tagline. Okay, so we have that for the synths. We also have the bass is pretty much doing the same thing, but we've kind of added this weird like talk box or vocoder or extra little kind of like growly bass under it. You can hear it, it's really wide.
You want me, I want you, baby. My sugar boo, I'm levitating.
And I'm willing to bet it's a talk box because I know that that'll come in later as well. Layered under, doing the same melody. All right, and vocals, we're quite a bit wider here. Wide multi-tracked vocals. All right, so it looks like we're like 3 wide for the first half of the phrases, and then for the I want you, baby, I'm levitating, we actually have extra vocals that are even more wide, stacked even more on ending phrases, and yeahs have gang vocals. All right, so you can see that we're kind of building up the dynamic right here. So this song is kind of linear. We have a verse that's here, a pre-chorus that's here, and the chorus is going to be way up here.
You want me, I want you, baby. My sugar boo, I'm levitating.
All right, so let's go into this chorus. All right, so we have right here. Oh, before we do that, I guess we can talk about the melody of the pre-chorus. It's the same melody throughout this entire pre-chorus. So da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. It's super melodic. It's really kind of just transparent. And it just happens over and over. So for the drums for this chorus, let's see. We finally have hi-hats. Big crash on the 1. Let's see if we have any extra kind of layers that come in. The drums and the kick and snare don't really seem any like bigger at all. It's mainly just those hi-hats adding that extra little rhythm now, and that kind of picks up the pacing where if you listen to this, those hi-hats add that nice little bit of movement. So drums are not doing anything super insane. And we have some little open hats here and there that just kind of add that nice little kind of subtlety. So really nothing happening crazy there. Synths, this is where we really start to expand. So we have quite a few different synths that end up happening. So we still have that same synth from the verses happening, the bwam, bwam, bwam. That happens throughout the entire song. But we added these kind of like big retro brass sounds, so you'll hear them right here. It'll be these big stab sounds. So you could use something like a Juno or a Jupiter or an Oberheim, kind of any 80s synth, any synth that's going to have these big wide detuned saw sounds. That would work perfectly for that. And then let's hear what else we have. There's also like this little, it's just a little pedaling note that's on that B that just holds it out. So long B note, hold on a string synth. So you could use something again like a Juno or like any kind of Oberheim. It's just that really high, like drawn out string. And that's just adding a little bit of consistency, so it's not so much movement all over the place. And that's happening just, again, it just kind of creates this big kind of soundscape. All right, and we also have a talk box doing some counter melodies and runs. Again, something that we start to introduce in that pre-chorus. And then guitars. Guitars, we're getting a little bit more consistent right here. So we kind of have that little funky guitar that follows bass rhythm and melody. So it's really just playing like the chords, and it's just kind of playing them, that like twangy little slappy funky tone that you get. Vocals, super stacked here, super wide here. Let's see what kind of harmony information we have. There's actually not a lot harmony-wise happening here. It's mostly just takes of that main melody, but we do have a reverse vocal before I'm levitating. So kind of a little production thing that you have there. Super wide, and then you'll hear a little stack right here, kind of swell in. Come on, dance with me. I'm levitating you. And an extra little reverb happening as well there. So lots of reverb and delay throws. And I think that's pretty much all that we have added for this. Yeah, really nothing crazy is happening, just a happening on that hi-hat, those big kind of brass stabs on that retro keys, and then that just little pedaling string sound with those extra little slappy guitars. Bass, I think, is doing the same thing. Maybe got some extra little notes and flourishes here and there, but you know, still the same bass. There's no kind of like extra layers or anything like that. So I think that we're gonna call it good on that. Let's go ahead and make sure that there's no extra production elements. Again, same thing, reverse swell into kind of big delay and vocal throw right here on Levitating, and then we're going into this little 2-bar turnaround. And this is the same as the intro, but now you can hear that that little string note that's being sustained on that B is kind of still staying. Where I don't think we have that up here. We don't have that, so that's the only thing that changes. So let me make a note there. All right, let's go to verse 2. It's pretty much the exact same as verse 1. I'm mainly just listening to what happens in the production.
I believe it's for me, I feel it in our energy, I see it's written in the stars. We can go wherever, so let's do it now or never, baby, nothing's...
All right, so here we do have some stuff. So we have basically everything is the same. We're just gonna add a few more elements. All right, so added we have those big tom hits layered over the claps, over the double claps, I should say. And then it sounds like there's like this extra kind of low pad layered in, just to give it a little bit more consistency. There's also this layered kind of synth bass happening that's like this like wubby little wump 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 wump.
I believe it's for me, I feel it in our energy, I see it's written in the stars. We can go wherever, so let's do it now or never, baby, nothing's ever too far.
And you can hear that this just has a little bit more depth than this.
If you wanna run away with me, I know a galaxy and I can take you for a ride. See it's written in the stars. We can go wherever, so let's do it now or never.
Also, that main synth motif from verse 1 is down an octave. And again, just creating small little differences from verse to verse. And that synth is filtered and rising. So it might not even be an octave lower, it might just be because it's so filtered out, because I don't think that's really happening on here.
Me at the perfect time.
Yeah, we really don't get that filtering happening in verse 1. That's only happening in verse 2. Melody is exactly the same as verse 1. So we're melody A, break that, go to melody B, back to melody A. We didn't talk about the chorus melody. I guess we can talk about that in the next chorus that's coming up. And that's pretty much it. That's all that changes.
You want me, I want you, baby. My sugar boo, I'm levitating. The Milky Way, we're renegading. You want me,
All right, so pre-chorus 2 has a lot of different additions. So pre-chorus 2, right here, big sacked vocals happening basically through the whole thing. And we also have these like extra synth hits, these extra string hits that are added.
you want me, I want you, baby. My sugar boo, I'm levitating. The Milky Way, we're renegading. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So everything is basically layered up. So strings layering that main element, the dun-dun-dun, and you can kind of hear the contrast.
The Milky Way, we're renegading. The Milky Way, we're renegading. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And just big riser into this chorus. Let's see if anything changes with the chorus.
You, moonlight, you're my starlight. I need you all night. Come on, dance. You're my starlight. I need you, moonlight, you're my starlight.
So far it sounds the same, so I think this is a good time to talk about the melody. So I'm not even going to highlight it, but it's basically the same thing. We have, I got you, moonlight, you're my starlight, I need you. So it's very rhythmic. It's not really like super flowy like a chorus normally is. And then it just kind of brings it in with that hook to, I'm levitating. And that's really it.
You, moonlight, you're my starlight. I need you all night. Come on, dance with me. I'm levitating. You.
Super simple melody. It basically stays on like a couple different notes the entire time. There's not a ton of movement in that melody. And then that's pretty much it. And again, just some extra talk box stuff happening, but really nothing got super layered. And then we're going into this post-chorus.
Come on, dance with me. I'm levitating. You can fly away with me tonight. You can fly away with me tonight. Baby, let me take you for a...
So this post-chorus actually is the biggest area of the song yet. Extra layered synths, wide stacked vocals. Sounds like they've got some extra different synths and guitars happening on that backbeat. So boom, bam, 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 boom, bam, bam.
You can fly away with me tonight. You can fly away with me tonight. Baby, let me take you for a ride. Yeah, yeah.
And since the drums don't really change, that adds a nice little bit of kind of counter rhythm to that. There's also a kind of little thing that you can hear kind of carrying over into this little bridge right here.
It's like a rocket, watch it blast off. And I'm feeling so electric.
It's almost like this like bit crushed, almost sounds like an alarm in the background going wah, wah.
It's like a rocket, watch it blast off. And I'm feeling so electric, dance on awesome.
So that's going through this kind of big post-chorus as well.
Baby, let me take you for a ride. Yeah, yeah.
And then you can actually hear that there's kind of this big, wide, kind of saw synth pad that ends up kind of doing this pitch shift and filter swell. The right there.
Baby, let me take you for a ride. Yeah, 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 yeah. My love is like a rocket.
So there is a shit ton of stuff happening there. It is super layered up. Let's go ahead and go to this kind of bridge right here.
Love is like a rocket, watch it blast off. And I'm feeling so electric, down so awesome. And even if I wanted to, I can't stop. Yeah, 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 yeah. My love is like a rocket.
All right, so for the first half, we're basically to drums, bass, synth, extra crush synth on top that we talked about just a second ago. There's like some shouting in the background, almost like party noise. Single vocal stacked on ending phrases. So like blast off, ass off, like those things all have these big kind of stacked vocals.
Love is like a rocket, watch it blast off. And I'm feeling so electric, down so awesome. And even if I wanted to, I can't stop.
You can kind of hear a shout right here like, ah!
Even if I wanted to, I can't stop.
Then we have a big, actually there might not even be bass here. So there is no bass. I'm gonna go ahead and take that out. And there's no guitar either. And then we just have a nice little like kind of bass run coming in. Big riser kind of shifting up. And let's go to the second half.
Yeah, 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 yeah. My love is like a rocket, watch it blast off. And I'm feeling so electric, dance my ass off. And even if I wanted to, I can't stop.
Basically, super similar to like what the chorus is. So we have big synth stabs on those ones, chord hits, and then we also have like this extra little synth that's kind of rising doing this little melody. This like really monophonic kind of portamento driven, just slides up the scale.
If I wanted to, I can't stop. Yeah, 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 yeah. You want me.
And it just kind of builds tension. And then we have this big kind of tension release right here with this kind of false chorus, well, false pre-chorus, I should say.
You want me, I want you, baby, my sugar boo, I'm levitating.
So pretty much everything arrangement-wise here changes. We go to some like really stompy drums and an 808. There's like this little percussive thing happening on one side. There's like some little trap hi-hats happening.
You want me, I want you, baby, my sugar boo, I'm levitating, the Milky Way, we're renegading.
There's that little guitar motif that happens. Big kind of delay throw right there that's super filtered out and spacey.
My sugar boo,
there's that kind of sliding monophonic synth. And then there's like some like really kind of vocal sounding whoop things happening in the background.
I'm levitating, the Milky Way, we're renegading. I got you.
And then a little drum fill. So I'm not gonna mark it just because we're starting to take up a ton of time and I just wanna cover this last little thing, but we're basically notating it all as we go anyway. And then we're going into the big kind of tension builder right here, which is this dropped out chorus.
You, moonlight, you're my starlight, I need you all night, come on.
Huge, just gang stacked vocals, and you can hear some of that weird yelling in the background. Big talk box coming in right here.
You, all night, come on, dance with me, I'm levitating.
And then they basically used like a big woo kind of gang shout that's swelling up as a riser, and then I'm levitating with that little bass line.
Come on, dance with me, I'm levitating. You can fly away with me tonight. You can fly away with me tonight. Baby, let me take you for a ride. Yeah, 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 yeah. Baby, let me take you for a ride. Yeah.
Post-chorus is pretty much the same. It's just got those little talk box kind of response vocals that are happening. That's basically the only thing. And then right here. Same kind of big arrangement right here. We just have that talk box adding in their own little things. We have that big kind of rising synth that almost sounds like a little siren right here.
You're my starlight, I need you all night. Come on, dance with me, I'm levitating. You, moonlight, you're my starlight, I need you all night. Come on, dance with me, I'm levitating.
Ends with one vocal with some extra little kind of vocal delays and a big kind of shiny reverb. And that's pretty much the entire song. So we have a small intro, small first verse, small first pre-chorus, pretty big first chorus, small intro, little bit bigger second verse, little bit bigger second pre-chorus, pretty much the same size chorus right here, huge post-chorus, going into this kind of pretty big bridge that kind of has an A part and a B part, and then we're going into this breakdown that's a pre-chorus right here, so totally different arrangement, which is nice for the listener, adds a nice little bit of a swap up with that halftime. And then right here we have that big kind of false chorus that builds that tension into that huge post-chorus with just added extra like little shit here and there, and then we're going into that last big chorus. It basically has everything that's happened in the song up to this point all kind of layered in there and crammed in there. And that is pretty much everything happening in Levitating. This took a ton of time. We didn't even get to talk about rhyme scheme and stuff like that, but that's all pretty basic. Pick up a poetry book or anything like that and it'll talk about that. But hopefully this kind of helped you analyze how melodies change throughout a song and how production and kind of structure will build throughout a song. And there you have it. That's kind of my method and technique for active listening. And again, these things are happening subconsciously. I'm not always going into a Word document and spending 30 minutes to an hour breaking a song down section by section, but I have done that before. And I do think it's a great technique and method to do, especially if you're a beginner trying to learn some of the kind of common factors in pop music or in any kind of genre. And I think it's a really good way to kind of develop arrangement styles and kind of melody structure and different things like that that you can end up kind of subconsciously putting in your own tracks. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was highly requested. If you want, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. If you want to check out more of our instant tips, you can head over to our Instagram at MakePopMusic, because we're doing 2 videos a week that are just short little quick tips on there. And we're really enjoying doing that. And if you want to head over to MakePopMusic.com, you can check out all of our other content. We have free and paid content, and any support over there definitely helps the channel and helps us to make videos like this. But that's going to be it for this video, and we will see you guys next week. Until then, much love everyone. Peace out.